Some cars weren't killed because they failed. They were killed because they were too dangerous, not to drivers, but to the very system of the auto industry. Too innovative, too different, too real to be allowed to live. We're talking about machines that almost changed American car history, but were buried by the same companies, the media, or public pressure. In this video, you won't just discover banned cars. You'll uncover ruthless decisions, lost chances. And the biggest question of all, what if they had been given a fair shot? Number 1. 1935 Chrysler Airflow. If you were alive in 1934 and saw a Chrysler Airflow driving down the street, you might have stopped in your tracks. Not because of a roaring engine, but because it just looked wrong. In an era when most cars were boxy and upright, the Airflow looked like something from the future. Integrated headlights, rounded wind-sculpted body, an aerodynamic shape tested in a wind tunnel. A concept virtually unheard of back then. It was the first American car to fully embrace aerodynamics. It even had perfect weight distribution, thanks to a forward-mounted engine placed ahead of the front axle. On paper, it was revolutionary. But being too far ahead comes at a price. People thought it was ugly. Dealers struggled to sell it. Rivals mocked it. And when early production models had frame issues, public trust vanished overnight. Chrysler fixed the problems quickly, but the damage was already done. The Airflow flopped, and by the late 1930s, Chrysler quietly pulled the plug. Yet decades later, classic car enthusiasts began to see the Airflow for what it truly was, a misunderstood masterpiece. Those who've restored and driven one say the same thing. The ride is shockingly smooth, the cabin quiet, and the experience feels like a luxury car born too early. The Chrysler Airflow is the perfect example of innovation punished for bad timing. Technically brilliant, strategically doomed. And if it had launched in a different decade, American car history might have taken a wildly different turn. Number 2. 1968 Dodge Dart. Not every car needs to scream down the street to be remembered. Some just quietly get the job done. The Dodge Dart was one of those cars. It wasn't a muscle car icon. It didn't have the buzz of a Mustang or a Charger. But for millions of Americans in the 60s and 70s, the Dart was a trusted companion, the car that took them to work, to the store, and on family vacations, without ever complaining. Technically, it came with a range of engines, from a thrifty inline-six to a capable V8. But most buyers weren't chasing performance. They chose the Dart for one simple reason. It was reliable, affordable, easy to fix, and ran like clockwork. But that very reliability came with a price. With its plain styling, modest power, and tame personality, the Dart rarely excited anyone. It didn't turn heads. It didn't make your pulse race when you floored it. As one former owner put it, "I don't remember any particular drive in my Dart because nothing ever went wrong. But now, I realize maybe that's exactly what made it special." The Dodge Dart wasn't flashy, but it never let you down. And in a world full of dramatic choices and unpredictable machines, sometimes dependability is the most underrated luxury of all. Number 3. 1974 Chevrolet Vega. The Chevrolet Vega was supposed to be GM's golden answer to the growing demand for small, fuel-efficient cars, a product born in the era of oil crises and rising Japanese competition. When it launched in the early 70s, the Vega had stylish looks, an attractive price, and the promise of practicality. For young, first-time buyers, it felt like a dream within reach. But here's the thing about dreams. If they're built on shaky ground, they don't last. Technically, The Vega was flawed on two fronts, body and engine. The steel used was thin, and the paint process was subpar, leading to rampant rust issues. Some owners reported seeing daylight through the floor after just a few years. And under the hood? The 140 cubic inch aluminum inline-4 was innovative but fragile, prone to overheating, cracked heads, and breakdowns. For many, the Vega became a garage regular, not by choice, but by necessity. One former owner recalled, "Buying a Vega was the first time I ever regretted owning a brand new car. It didn't blow up, it just slowly drained my patience." The Vega had potential, no question. But GM's rush to get it to market without proper quality control sealed its fate. In the end, it wasn't just a failed car. It was a cautionary tale for an entire generation of American automakers. Number 4. 1971 Ford Maverick. When it launched in 1970, the Maverick was aimed at young buyers who couldn't afford a Mustang, but still wanted something that looked sporty. With its subtle fastback design, crisp lines, and bold name, it resembled a baby Mustang, at least from a distance. But once you stepped inside and hit the gas, that illusion quickly faded. Most Mavericks came with a humble inline-6 engine. At higher speeds, it groaned and struggled, but never really moved. And if you were hoping for handling or muscle car thrills, well, you were hoping for too much. Visually, the Maverick had promise. But build quality? That was a different story. The interior was bare bones, seats cracked, dashboards warped, paint flaked, and then came the universal curse of cheap 1970s cars: rust. One owner recalled spotting a small paint bubble by the rear fender. Just months later, it was a hole you could fit your hand through. The Maverick wasn't a terrible car. It was easy to fix, parts were everywhere, and it didn't cost much to run. But it never truly lived up to what many imagined it to be: a mini Mustang. For many, the Maverick was their first car. For some, it was also their first real disappointment. Number 5. 1975 Ford Torino Elite. Born during the mid-70s personal luxury car boom, the Torino Elite was dressed to impress. Massive chrome grille, opera windows, vinyl roof, and a body so long it looked like it belonged outside a Vegas casino. It was Ford's answer to the Chevy Monte Carlo and Chrysler Cordoba. Affordable coupes with Cadillac vibes. And on the road, it drove exactly like it looked, like a couch on wheels. The suspension was soft, the steering feather light, and the cabin was big and plush, built for smooth highway cruises. But if you were hoping for performance or excitement, this was not your car. Despite having V8 options like the 351 Windsor or 400 cubic inches, emissions regulations, and the car's sheer weight strangled the power. It sounded tough, but drove like a tired old man. Even worse, fuel economy was abysmal. Single-digit MPG wasn't uncommon. One owner summed it up perfectly. "I loved how it looked, but every time I filled the tank, I felt like I was paying for performance. That never showed up." The Torino Elite wasn't a bad car, but it represented a time when American automakers chased luxury styling while sacrificing the driving experience. Today, in hindsight, it feels like a shrunken limousine. Beautiful, nostalgic, and maybe a bit lost in its own ambition. Number 6. 1972 AMC Gremlin. Imagine walking through a showroom, browsing traditional sedans, and then, bam, there it is. A car that looks like someone attacked it with a chainsaw. Welcome to the AMC Gremlin. Launched in 1970, the Gremlin was American Motors' quick and dirty answer to the looming fuel crisis. But instead of designing something new from scratch, AMC simply took a Hornet, chopped off the back, and called it a day. Some called it weirdly ugly. Others thought it was charmingly odd. But one thing was clear: the Gremlin got attention. Underneath that bizarre exterior, the Gremlin had a no-frills setup, rear-wheel drive, and your choice of an inline-six or a V8. With the inline-six, it actually felt peppy, at least off the line. But that excitement rarely lasted long. Build quality? Let's just say creative. Vinyl seats that cracked when you looked at them wrong, dashboards that rattled like maracas, and interior trim that felt borrowed from a toy store. And rust? Oh, Gremlins rusted like it was part of their job description. One owner summed it up best: "My Gremlin had personality, the kind that made you laugh right before it made you cry." Yet for all its flaws, the Gremlin carved out a cult following. Number 7. 1974. Chevrolet Monte Carlo. The Chevrolet Monte Carlo had all the visual cues of a true luxury coupe: a long hood, sleek body lines, and a bold square grille made it look expensive. At launch, it was marketed as a personal luxury car, designed for those who wanted Cadillac flair, but with a Chevy badge and price tag. And in terms of styling, they nailed it. But underneath all that elegance, performance told a different story. Sure, it offered V8 options, including the 400 and even the 454. But thanks to emissions regulations, low compression ratios, massive curb weight, and a lazy 3-speed auto, the power delivery felt underwhelming. You'd stomp on the pedal, and instead of a roar, you'd get a polite groan. One owner put it perfectly: "I bought it thinking it was a player's car, but driving it felt like piloting a velvet-wrapped refrigerator." To be fair, comfort was where the Monte Carlo truly excelled. The suspension was plush, the seats were like sofas, and the ride was smooth as silk. For long cruises, it was outstanding. The Monte Carlo wasn't a bad car, it just misled people. Many expected a disguised muscle car, and when that punch didn't come, they felt let down. But if you accepted it for what it was, a Cadillac light instead of a fancy Chevelle, it made perfect sense why the Monte Carlo became one of the best-selling coupes of the 1970s. Number 8. 1975 Ford Mustang II. This is the part Mustang fans might want to skip. Because the Mustang II isn't the kind of car you proudly showcase in your garage. It's the black sheep of the Mustang family. Born in 1974, right when the energy crisis hit, emissions laws tightened, and insurance for muscle cars skyrocketed. Ford had no choice. They had to shrink the Mustang to fit the times. The result? A smaller, lighter coupe. Built on the Ford Pinto platform. Yes, Pinto. To be fair, the Mustang II didn't look terrible. The fastback version with rally stripes had decent curb appeal, and you could even option a 302 V8. But don't let the numbers fool you. The power delivery was thoroughly underwhelming. One owner recalled, "I hit the gas, expecting a kick, and all I got was a groan." Nothing happened. The suspension was soggy, the steering vague, and taking corners felt like guiding a recliner on wheels. It didn't feel like a Mustang. It felt like a commuter car pretending to be one. Despite selling in the millions, the Mustang II remains a beautiful letdown. Not because it was terrible, but because it wasn't the Mustang people dreamed of. Number 9. 1972. Mercury Montego. Not every car needs to roar, burn rubber, or break records to be remembered. The Mercury Montego proves that. While the spotlight shone on Mustangs, Torinos, and Chevelles, the Montego stood quietly in the corner, unassuming yet unforgettable to those who owned it. Launched in the early 1970s, the Montego was part of a generation where muscle cars were maturing. It wasn't a full-fledged performance machine, nor a plain sedan. With its squared-off design, formal upright grille, long body, and spacious interior, the Montego projected a sense of grown-up dignity. Under the hood, V8 options, like the 302 or 351, provided enough grunt for city driving and the open road alike. But performance wasn't what made the Montego special. It was the way it drove. Light steering, soft suspension, and a solid frame made every ride smooth, like gliding on a gentle current. No drama, just dependable calm. One owner summed it up. The Montego never made me stand out, but it always made me feel secure. Number 10. 1975 Ford Pinto. Launched in 1971, the Pinto was born in urgency. Ford needed a small, fuel-efficient car to compete with Japanese imports, and they did it at record speed, just 25 months from concept to production, nearly twice as fast as the normal development cycle. That alone should raise red flags. On the outside, the Pinto was cute, compact, affordable, and practical. A small inline-4 engine, rear-wheel drive, lightweight. It checked the boxes for basic transportation. But beneath its mild-mannered looks was a fatal flaw. The gas tank was mounted directly behind the rear axle, making it dangerously vulnerable in rear-end collisions. Worse, Ford knew about the problem. Internal documents revealed that the company considered fixing it, but chose not to because the cost was too high. A cold, calculated decision. Profits over people. After a series of fiery crashes, public outrage exploded. The media pounced. Congress got involved. Lawsuits piled up. And the Pinto became a symbol, not of innovation, but of corporate indifference in American auto culture. Today, the Pinto stands as a harsh lesson for every engineer and executive. Not all failures come from poor engineering. Some come from choosing the wrong priorities. Number 11. 1966 Chevrolet Corvair. The Chevrolet Corvair, produced from 1960 to 1969, was a car that dared to be different. With its rear-mounted air-cooled engine, it had more in common with German engineering than Detroit iron. Corvair was praised for its boldness and personality. With its sleek looks, low center of gravity, and sharp handling, many fans dubbed it the American Porsche for the everyman. Then, it all unraveled. In 1965, Ralph Nader published Unsafe at Any Speed, a scathing critique of automotive safety that called out the Corvair specifically, accusing it of being a rolling hazard due to its rear suspension design, which he claimed made it prone to rollovers during sharp maneuvers. Though GM later revised the design and independent studies later showed the Corvair wasn't any more dangerous than its peers, the damage was already done. Corvair became the poster child for corporate irresponsibility in the auto industry. Sales tanked. Public trust vanished. And eventually, Chevrolet quietly pulled the plug. One former owner reflected, "It wasn't perfect, but I never once felt unsafe behind the wheel." Today, the Corvair stands as a symbol of two hard truths. First, innovation always carries risk. And second, a single book, a public backlash, can end even the most promising engineering dream. Number 12. 1958 Edsil Pacer. Some cars fail because they're bad. Others fail simply because they were born at the wrong time. The Edsil Pacer is the textbook example of the latter. Launched in 1958, during a rapidly changing era in America, the Pacer was Ford's ambitious bid to rival luxury brands like Cadillac and Buick. But what most people remember about the Edsil isn't its luxury. It's that infamous oval grille, mocked endlessly as looking like an upside-down toilet, which is a shame, because beneath that controversial design was actually a well-built car. A strong V8 engine, spacious interior, and a futuristic push-button transmission mounted on the steering wheel. Features ahead of their time. The problem? The market just wasn't ready. The design was too unconventional. The marketing campaign was chaotic. And when sales underperformed, the media pounced with brutal criticism. Edsil became a victim of the very ambition Ford had poured into it. One former owner recalled, "I felt like I was driving something special, but all people did was stare and laugh." Today, the Edsil Pacer stands as a symbol of glorious failure, where vision outpaced acceptance. And for car lovers, sometimes that's what makes a car live on forever. Some cars were banned for being dangerous. Some were mocked for outdated design. And some simply failed because they were too far ahead of their time. But whatever the reason, each of these vehicles represents a bold era in American automotive history. A time when manufacturers dared to take risks, make mistakes, and sometimes accept failure. We might laugh at the odd shape of the Gremlin, fear the fuel tank of the Pinto, or debate whether the Corvair was treated unfairly. But these stories are what make car history complex, human, and worth remembering. Have you ever heard of these cars before? Did any of them make you rethink what success or failure in car design really means? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you'd like to dive deeper into more strange, forgotten, or misunderstood cars from the past, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There are plenty more fascinating stories just around the corner.